Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Nurse Akosia. Today I want us to talk about NCLEX must know. So yeah, you're gonna study a lot of things for the NCLEX and you are supposed to know your content, like everything, but you have to make sure that there are certain things, what I'm gonna talk about, you have to know it whether you like it or not. Like no matter how much you study, make sure that you do know what I'm gonna talk about. All right. So you must know these things in order to take the NCLEX and pass, plus the other contents that you will study. All right, so let's get started. So the number one thing that you should know before taking the NCLEX is your lab values. Your lab values, you will have to know them, because when the question comes out and it's like the person's let's say when there's a question like a patient's potassium level is 3.2, you should be able to know if it's either low or if it's high, and you can only know that when you know your lab values. And the easiest way to know it, how I did it, was in one of my other videos, I mentioned that I had sticky notes and then I wrote each lab value on one of them, like one of each, and I pasted it all over the house. And so whenever you're like passing through maybe the kitchen, or if you're taking your breakfast, or like, if it's all over your bedroom, um, when you see them on a frequent basis, it's easier for it to stick, because there are a whole lot of lab values that you should know. And it helped me. The second must know is the universal precautions. Yes, you will have to know whichever infections or diseases that comes with which precautions to use. So let's take, for example, when we take TB, tuberculosis. With that, it is a droplet, and it's also considered airborne. So let me give you an example of how it's gonna be like. Mostly the NCLEX wants to know what if you actually know. So they add a critical thinking part to it, and that is where if you actually don't know what you're doing, then you'll be stuck somewhere, like in the test. So let's take, for example, TB. A patient has TB, and you, the nurse, you're supposed to attend to the patient. Since it's droplet and airborne, we know that it's got to do with masks. So you're gonna get, like, let's say the answers, the MCQs, you're gonna get something like a face shield, a face mask, an N95, and then something else that is more like a mask thing. What you have to do is the face mask is the first thing that comes to your mind. But if you do know that it is airborne, and when it's airborne, just think about COVID, for example, and then it has all of them there. You will have to wear all of them if you have the means to. What the NCLEX wants to know is, if you are left with one choice out of the whole lot, which one would you go for? That is how the NCLEX is like. So if you're given a whole bunch of face masks, and you know that you can wear any of them for tuberculosis, you are supposed to choose the very, very important one that will prevent you from getting TB, and that will be the N95. Yes, so you have to know the infections or diseases that comes with whichever precaution. So there was this mnemonic that I used for that. I will talk about it in another video, but then you will have to know the precautions and whichever infections and whatever precautions that comes with it. The third thing you have to know, the third must know, is prioritization. Yes, when it comes to the NCLEX prioritization, you're going to get a lot of these questions. So an example of prioritization is mostly when you're supposed to choose between patients. Like you have like maybe 4 or 5 patients, and you can attend to one at a time, but you have to prioritize. Like you have to make sure that the one that is waiting is not gonna die when you leave them. So mostly what actually helped me with my studying was McClemick. He actually simplified the prioritization. He gave this simple way of going about your prioritization that is from head to toe. So if the patients are there, classify them according to the conditions that they're presenting with. And you have to prioritize starting from the head. So let's say if someone has a respiratory problem and you're comparing it to someone who has a GI problem, the respiratory is always going to be on top of the GI, except in an emergency where it can lead to shock or death. But most of the time, respiratory comes before GI. I will put that link. I will try and put the link for McClemick's audio on my website, and then you can get a copy of that. The fourth one is your medication, your pharm. Yes, pharmacology. Where you have to learn the most important thing you're supposed to know is drug interaction and drug effects, as in the side effects or adverse effects. You will have to know that. And the easiest way, what I used to learn the pharm, I mentioned in one of my videos as well, I used Simple Nursing. Simple Nursing, you can click on the link above and then to go to Simple Nursing to use his pharm. He makes it easy and fun, so it's easy to understand. Also about the pharm, the easiest way to study it, you do not have to study every single medication on its own. It's easier when you study the pharm in their classes. So let's say that if you are studying antibiotics, yes, you know that antibiotics, they all have a common thing amongst them, and it's supposed to be, you have to take it the entire course, and you don't have to take it with alcohol. And when you break them down into, let's say, aminoglycosides or cephalosporins or anything, when we come to the mycins, you will know that I use the names of the drugs all the time. So when we come to the mycins, you will know that they are hard on the kidneys and the ears as well. So you just learn the prefix or the suffix of the drugs, and then you can use that to help you study it easier. Like let's say, for example, if you're studying about antihypertensives and we go to the beta blockers. If you're talking about beta blockers, we know beta blockers, they end with LOL, the lols. So you don't have to go and try studying every single medication and the beta blockers. So you know that beta blockers, there is a problem with heart rate, and then you have to always make sure that the heart rate is not below 60. And then that's it. You don't have to go and learn the names, just learn the last. But make sure there are 1 or 2 or 3 medications or drugs that do not follow those rules. And what I did was I followed those rules to study my drugs, the pharm, and then after I tried to study the ones that decided to be on their own. And it makes it easier for me. It made it easier for me to study. You cannot know everything. So the best way to learn these things are using the prefixes and the suffixes. And that actually comes with the classifications of the medications. Also with a pharm, you have to know your drug calculations. Yes, you must know it. I didn't have like a lot of pharm. I had just one of them. And just the one was a calculation. And the calculation was easy on me. I could have done it without a calculator, but it's my life. But you may not be as lucky as I was, and you may get a little bit complicated one. Always go prepared, know the expect the worst, and that's where it actually pushes you to study more. And then when you get there and you get the easy ones, that is where you realize that, oh my gosh, I studied so much for this, and now I'm so happy because I believe I am going to pass. Yeah. So it's better to study a whole bunch of things than to not study, some things, and then you get there and then it becomes a problem for you. Another thing that you will have to know, it's a must know, is delegation. Yes, delegation. You only study it from your state board of nursing site. That is where you find every information about your delegation. So my nurses who are from where I come from in Ghana, this is how I found it easy to know the delegation. So when it comes to a PCA or unlicensed personnel or the CNA, I compare them to the nurse assistants in the hospital. And then when it comes to the LVNs and the LPNs, I compare them to the enrolled nurses. They have similar, responsibilities and duties, so it made it easier on me. And when it comes to the RN, the ADN, on RN, whether it's ADN or BSN, you have the same responsibilities. Yeah, it's just a matter of the tiny difference in pay. But the BSN takes you places, so I would encourage you to get your BSN. Most hospitals actually require it. And so, yeah, that is how I went about with my delegation. There are tiny differences between the LPN and the RN. And if you should compare it to, let's say, an enrolled nurse and a nurse in Ghana, there are like tiny differences. And with that, I think it will make it easier on you, like not studying too much because you actually know a little bit coming from where you're coming from. That is all I have for you today, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet, kindly hit the subscribe button. So let me tell you one thing: you do not have to know everything to take and pass the NCLEX. However, you have to make sure that you know the basics, you know the must knows before you take the NCLEX. And trust me, it's gonna help you a lot. All right, thank you and have a great day.